they weren't chosen by accident. Jurors in Disguise, a jury investigations podcast, exposes jurors who lied their way onto the jury to secure a guilty verdict. Each episode, owner and founder Mary Rose Peterson pulls back the curtain on real cases, revealing misconduct buried in lies beyond the gavel. Visit us on YouTube at youtube.com/@juryinvestigations.
Hello and welcome to another podcast of Jurors in Disguise. My name is Mary Rose Peterson and I own Covert Ops Jury Investigations. What do? I'm glad you ask. We investigate the jury to find the one or more jurors who lied during jury selection so they would be chosen and could then make sure that our clients were convicted. In this podcast, I'm going to be speaking about a case of ours from 2023, and then I'm going to be interviewing the wife of our client about the impact that this case has had on her and her family. In this particular county, the jurors filled out a juror qualification questionnaire, and this questionnaire was relied on very heavily during the voir dire proceeding by the attorneys when vetting these prospective jurors for the jury. This particular juror wrote down the ages and the occupations of his two sons. Then on question 18, it says, have you, a family member or a relative, ever been the victim of a crime? There are two boxes. One says yes, and one says no. He put a big X through no. On question 19, it says, have you, a family member or a relative, ever been arrested or accused of a crime? And again, two boxes. Yes, no. This juror crossed through no. At the bottom of the questionnaire, it says, Section 837.06 of the Florida statutes makes it a misdemeanor of the second degree to, quote, knowingly make a false statement in writing with the intent to mislead a public servant in the performance of his official duty, end quote. Then it says, I certify that I have answered all questions truthfully to the best of my knowledge and belief. It is signed by the juror and dated. Now, the issue became, when we researched his family, we found that that was not the truth. The truth is, he should have answered yes to both questions 18 and 19. Have you, a family member or relative, ever been the victim of a crime? And have you, a family member or relative, ever been arrested or accused of a crime? He lied. He was a retired commercial pilot. He was from England and had served in the Queen's Army as a pilot. He had received quite the accommodation from the Queen for his service. So this was someone who, in my opinion, would not have simply made a mistake on a form. Another reason why I say this, and I actually testified in court about this, is that my late husband was an air weapons controller in the Air Force. If my late husband, who was named Stan, if Stan had made a mistake on a form, people would have died and millions of dollars of equipment would have been destroyed. People who are pilots, especially in the military, do not make mistakes on a form. Okay. What did we discover when we investigated this juror? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to read from the March 2023 report that I wrote because it includes what the judge said to the prospective jurors during the voir dire examination. He began the jury selection by saying, this part of the case is known as voir dire. Voir dire is a French meaning to speak the truth. All of you have previously been sworn to truthfully answer all questions as prospective jurors in this case. A voir dire examination is for the purpose of determining if your decision in this case would in any way be influenced by opinions which you now hold or by some personal experience or special knowledge which you may have concerning the subject matter to be tried. The object is to obtain a jury which will impartially try the issues of this case based solely upon the evidence presented in this courtroom and on the instructions on the law given by the court to you, and without being influenced by any bias, prejudice, or other factors. Please understand that this questioning is not for the purpose of prying into your affairs for personal reasons, but is only for the purpose of obtaining an impartial jury. If your truthful answer to any particular question might be embarrassing or uncomfortable, you may simply raise your hand and request that we discuss your answer privately up here at the bench with the attorneys. That was the very first thing that the prospective jurors heard when they came into jury service. The prosecutor later said, "All we ask is that you be truthful with your answers. There's no right or wrong answer. You don't have to worry about that. And you might be better for another case. It's okay. That's all we ask. And I'm not going to pry into your lives or embarrass you, so if there's something I ask and you don't feel comfortable talking about it out loud, please let me know, and we can approach privately with the judge and talk about it privately." Now, the state attorney went on to ask about those particular questions, 18 and 19, on the questionnaire. 18 total that spoke up and allowed her to further inquire as to the answers to questions 18 and 19. Before the state attorney concluded her voir dire examination, she said, "Anyone been a victim of a crime that you think is important for us to know about that may impact your ability to listen and be impartial that we haven't talked about?" Now realize this juror never raised his hand. She said, "I see no hands." So he lied on the questionnaire, and then he lied during the voir dire when he did not raise his hand and admit his answers on those two questions were not truthful. We searched and found a former wife of his. They had had 2 children together, the 2 boys that the juror admitted to on the questionnaire. We found that his former wife had claimed to be a victim of domestic violence in a prior relationship. And there was also a domestic violence claim that was alleged against her, where she was not the victim, she was the aggressor. There was a petition for injunction filed by her against her then husband, and he filed a counter petition. The juror did not disclose that. So now we know there are 2 injunctions that were filed, one by the juror's ex-wife and one by her husband at the time, both alleging domestic violence on each other. He didn't mention any of that. Then it got interesting. We found the 2 boys who were grown, ages 37 and 40 at the time of trial. So they were grown men. We found that the youngest son had criminal charges in 4 counties in Florida, had a multitude of criminal charges, including, well, I'll just tell you what they were. Trespassing, violation of probation, driving while license suspended. He had 3 of those. Forgery, possessing a driver's license with the altered date of birth, and drug paraphernalia. Driving while license suspended, habitual criminal felony, 3rd degree. Another violation of probation. And on this one, we found that the juror who had said on his questionnaire, no, he bailed his son out of jail. So the juror was familiar with this case. The son was also guilty of giving a false name to law enforcement officers, violation of driver's license restrictions, possession of controlled substance, and once again, the juror bailed him out. Another violation, restrictions placed on a driver's license, and again, 3rd time, the juror bailed his son out of jail. The last case that we found was reckless driving, criminal traffic. The other son had criminal charges in 2 counties in the state of Florida. Unauthorized use, possession, or act with the driver's license, driving while license suspended, driving while license suspended or revoked, driving while license suspended or revoked, possession of cannabis, use or possession of drug paraphernalia, and fraud, insufficient funds check, obtaining goods and services. Those are his only 2 sons. Is that the type of father that you want on your jury, deciding your fate? I don't think so. And we're able to locate his former brother-in-law, who has a constructive possession criminal felony case in one county. Actually, 4 counties throughout the state of Florida had charges: reckless driving, child abuse and battery domestic violence misdemeanor, petition for injunction against battery domestic violence by his then wife, which would have been the juror's sister-in-law, battery domestic violence, and felony battery domestic by strangulation, criminal felony. This is the juror's brother-in-law. And yet, have you, a family member or relative, ever been the victim of a crime? How about you were strangled by your then husband? Yeah, that counts. Have you, a family member or relative, ever been arrested or accused of a crime? Knowing that this is a professional military pilot who is at this point a retired commercial pilot, would you even consider that he simply made a mistake on his form? I don't think so. In fact, I know so. How do I know? Because I was married to someone for 25 years that if he had checked no when it should have been yes, people would have died. They don't make those kind of mistakes. Career military pilots don't make mistakes on forms. That's absurd and ridiculous. But that's exactly what the state attorney argued at the hearing. Argued that he simply made a mistake on a form. The form that he swore was truthful. I want to add that in addition to the 3 reports that I wrote and presented, I had 129 pages of exhibits proving that this juror did not make a mistake on a form. He lied. This is not the first time that the courts have put a time limit on something that has made it impossible, not just difficult, impossible for the person convicted of a crime to refute it. So regardless of what we found, which was gross juror misconduct, in my opinion, this juror lied on his questionnaire. He lied during the voir dire by remaining silent, and he got on that jury. Did it make a difference to the case? Well, I believe so, because when you look at the facts of the case, there are no facts. State attorney's office fought against a juror interview. And when I say fought on a level that was absurd and ridiculous. Why? Why wouldn't you want to talk to a juror who was willing to lie on an official document and lie in a proceeding where the very meaning of the proceeding is to speak the truth? Jurors who come into court and lie to get on a jury for whatever reason, vigilante justice, working in tandem with the state attorney's office, I don't know. Don't care. The fact is, if you were not biased, if you did not have an agenda, you would have simply told the truth. You wouldn't have lied on your juror questionnaire. You would not have lied by staying silent throughout the voir dire while other people are speaking up. We have to start holding jurors accountable. When you come into court and you knowingly lie, you should be arrested, charged, and prosecuted. When that lie leads to an innocent person being wrongfully convicted, you should have to pay for that. There should be some criminal punishment for you doing that to someone. But time after time after time again, state attorneys and judges refuse to hold lying jurors accountable. Refuse. Not only do they refuse, they deny motions. They won't even talk to them. They will not bring them in for a jury interview. Why? What have you got to hide? by bringing in someone to your courtroom who has lied to your face, why don't you want to know why they came into your court, took an oath, and swore to tell the truth on paper and verbally, and still lied? Innocent people are being convicted by liars. I have read thousands of voir dire transcripts, and every single one, and I mean every single one, the judge has told the prospective jurors, it is your job as a juror, if you are chosen, it will be your job to listen to the testimony and decide who is telling the truth. If you lie to get on a jury, your credibility's in the toilet. You have no credibility as far as I'm concerned. You're a liar. So how can we expect liars to sit in judgment over who's telling the truth? We can't. But every day in courtrooms across America, this is what's going on. People are lying to get on juries, and then their job is to figure out who's telling the truth. It would be laughable if someone's life wasn't on the line. It's not funny. It's not a joke. This is deadly serious. Next, I'm going to talk to our client's wife. She's going to tell you a little bit about the impact that this false accusation and wrongful incarceration has meant to her and her husband and their family, because a juror came into that courtroom, lied on a form, lied during voir dire, and never corrected his false answer. Ultimately was chosen, served on the jury, and our client was convicted. I want you to hear from her. Hear a little bit of her side. I would love to know how you and Chris met.
Oh, that's a funny story.
Okay.
We actually went to school together, but I didn't know Chris. He was a grade below me, and we went to go get pizza. Chris was he was over several pizza stores.
Okay.
And the pizza store, it was like 115 degrees outside. So me and my girlfriend, we were dying. We were so hot. We went to go pick up pizza, and it was probably 120 degrees in that pizza store.
Oh, wow.
And it just so happens that he was filling in for the manager because the air conditioners went out and the manager got sick from the heat.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
he says, "Is your name Angela?" And I was like, "No." He goes, "Did you go to Eisenhower?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Did you play soccer?" I said, "Yeah." And so he asked me my name. He goes, "Well, that's close. That's pretty good."
Starts with an A.
Yeah. But we exchanged numbers, and it was before Facebook came out. And really, my intent was just to find out um, if he knew anybody I knew, because you lose touch
Right.
with people. And
Right.
he just was so easy to talk to. He was very personable and very easy to be around.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I waited about 2 weeks, and then I actually called him, which I never did.
Yeah.
But I called him because I was just really curious on who he knew and stuff. And then we went out on a date, and just it's so funny because I was a single mom with 3 kids at the time.
Yeah.
And I never introduced my kids to anyone if I dated anyone. I kept it very, I didn't date much, actually.
Yeah.
And he would just show up. He'd show up at my house.
Oh, when you know, you know. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a fun story. Met at a pizza joint. That's really sweet. Well, I love how you've blended your families. That's really awesome that you found someone. I feel like that about Martin, that, it took a long time to find someone that just clicked, that,
Yeah.
where you just can't imagine your life without them. Yeah.
I, for a long time, just didn't really want to date or anything for a long time. And then when I met him, he's just so easy. Yeah, it was just a click.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when did you get married? What year?
In 2007.
2007. So almost 20 years coming up.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really
Yeah.
awesome. What is it that you would like to say that hasn't been heard, or you've said it and nobody seems to be listening?
One of the things that I scream about is that, you know, I get on the internet and I see these politicians, and they'll start talking about how we need to be tougher on crime, and we need to be the death penalty for, you know, and it sounds wonderful. It sounds good for the average person until you're in it and you realize how they don't always care if they get the right guy. They don't always care. All they care about is getting a number. Well, I just had to get a new bank card because I had a fraudulent charge on my account
Mhm.
because somebody broke into some company's
Right.
computer somewhere, you know. So, you know, you have all these things that happens with computers, but you can put somebody away for 52 years. You know, one thing I want out there is if anybody ever gets in trouble,
Mhm.
do whatever you possibly can at front, at the first of it.
Yeah.
Don't let someone say, oh, we don't need to do that. We don't have to
Right.
do that. That's not necessary.
Right.
It is necessary. Don't ever let a lawyer tell you, oh, that's not necessary, because
Right.
it is.
Right.
Absolutely is.
Right.
But it's just educating people on how, I mean, we've never been in trouble before. We didn't know what to do.
Right. Right. We didn't either. We thought the
Mm-hmm.
truth would be heard. We thought that this whole thing was just ridiculous. We should have taken it more serious.
Mm-hmm.
We just thought there's no way.
Because your opinion and your knowledge doesn't matter. It has to be a professional witness. And we didn't have one. We didn't have anybody that can combat
Right.
what they say.
Right.
Well, and most lawyers don't have that knowledge either, and they don't
No.
know the right
You
things to
wouldn't.
say or ask.
Right. Right.
So,
I agree. Having a someone that can speak to the heart of the matter is very important. You would think that whatever evidence was used against you would be something you could challenge at any point. It's
right.
like DNA. If you have DNA that was tested, but you want to get it retested by your expert or who you pay, that should
Yeah.
be allowed at any point.
I mean, that's the one thing I hate about prisons is if there's an injustice, you cannot say anything because then they retaliate
Right. Well, snitches get stitches. You know.
or get killed. And it's not about getting the right person and putting the bad people away. It's about I will get reelected if I put so many people away. It doesn't matter if they're innocent or guilty.
Right. Yeah. It is very political, and it's
I mean, look at the fact that, okay, say you win a case and instead of saying, oh, yeah, we were wrong, they're not going to do that. They're going to make a deal
right.
so they can still get their number.
Right.
You put all your hope in appeals, and you put your hope in these like 3.850, and
Mhm.
you don't even know. I mean, like in our case on the appeal, we don't even know if the judge even looked at it.
Yeah.
And they're not, they don't have to they don't have to say anything. They don't have to say why. And to me, it seems like there's, again, no accountability. We have rules in place to alleviate some of the workload on these judges. Therefore, now we don't know if they're even looking at them.
Right. Yeah. It's the infamous PCA. You got PCA'd. Pure curum affirmed. You know, I had to even look that up. It just means we affirm the lower court. We agree with the lower court's denial. So we deny it because the lower court denied it. And you're right. It's like, did you even read this though? Did you even look at this? Because the lower court was wrong. And now you're wrong. And you won't explain why, because if you did, I could fix it.
Right. The burden's on the family. It's not just all of this insane amount of money that it costs to try to undo the damage, but you're also spending an insane amount of money to the prisons because they charge, because they don't get enough to eat. You have to give them food to eat. The phone calls, you have to stay connected or they won't stay sane.
That's right.
Because of the abuses. They call them rat patties, and it's all the byproducts that you normally wouldn't eat. So it's got gristle and all the nasty stuff that in them. And it's not the amount of food they say they're supposed to give them.
No. A child could not sustain on what they feed these grown men.
No, and I feel bad for those men in there that don't have family. Well, it puts a mental toll on the ones that are in prison. It really does. When they have this dooming, this is the rest of my life. And so it's the conversations that you get to have with your loved one are never pleasant. The one that I think that affect the most is our youngest child. And I mean, he seems to be doing okay, but he's living in a single parent home. He grew up a single parent child. And
how old is he now?
He is 17 now.
Wow.
So next year's a senior year. There's a lot of firsts Chris has missed. My daughter's pregnant. He missed her wedding. He missed his son's second baby being born. So it's a lot of firsts, and sometimes he acts like he doesn't want to know anything about it. And then
our courtrooms are theaters. The judge is the director of the show. There are actors. They have scripts to follow. There is a crescendo. I call that when the jury verdict is delivered to the courtroom. And even applause sometimes. It's a show. Remember, the courtrooms may be silent, but we won't be. We will continue to speak up. We will speak out. And we will always speak the truth. Thank you and God bless. That's all for now.
All it takes is one to convict an innocent person. One Trojan juror, one biased agenda, one hidden motive. That's why we investigate juries. We identify the sinister players and expose them. Jury investigations. Our number one objective is to get you back into the courtroom, because a guilty verdict doesn't have to be the end of the story.